Good morning, my name is Josh from Cyclone, and today we're going to be tracking ex-tropical cyclone Lincoln, located over the Kimberley region of Western Australia. Then we're going to take a look at the Coral Sea and see what kind of tropical cyclone activity or rainfall activity we're expecting there. And then we'll take a look at some thunderstorms expected for southeastern Queensland, because I feel like I've been neglecting the general weather picture for Australia in regards to the developing tropical cyclone Lincoln up in the Kimberley region. So you can see tropical cyclone Lincoln, or ex-tropical cyclone Lincoln, however you'd like to refer to it. It's not quite a tropical cyclone yet, but it is a well-defined tropical low with a centre of circulation about here where the cursor is. It's rotating around a pretty broad centre right now. It's looking rather messy in terms of thunderstorm activity and convection around it, and it is in an environment of high wind shear. There's also been a big shift in the forecast models overnight and throughout yesterday. We're now looking at a much better case scenario for a landfall on Western Australia, and now a landfall site of Exmouth is expected. So for locations between Exmouth, Onslow, Coral Bay, that sort of area, make sure you are now preparing for a tropical cyclone. I think this will peak out as a Category 2 strength system. We're not expecting anything stronger than that. It looks like wind shear is going to be too high for this system the further west it goes. And the ECMWF itself, which is a forecast model we'll look at right now, has completely dropped the big forecast from what we have been seeing. So this is some very good news so far. We're only looking at for a weak tropical cyclone. It takes its time to get itself properly offshore. It takes it till about Thursday or so to get itself significantly far enough offshore and won't have a problem with land interaction, and then it very slowly intensifies, becomes a cyclone by Friday morning, and it still intensifies quite rapidly, but it looks like it's just a little bit too small to do well in this environment where there will be a little bit of wind shear around. Still though, this is a Category 2 strength tropical cyclone here. This is not something to be messing around with. It's got winds approaching 90 kilometers an hour with peak wind gusts probably of around 130, 140 kilometers an hour, actually up to 150 kilometers an hour. Now, what has me concerned on this forecast is the fact that this tropical cyclone is very small. Historically, small tropical cyclones can go behind our backs and rapidly intensify without us knowing. And so the fact that this is a small system, I cannot be writing off a big peak from this tropical cyclone. However, considering that this is now in line or further in line with what the GFS model was predicting, with this very weak, messy system that hardly even impacts Australia at all, I'm more inclined to say that this system is on the downtrend in terms of the peak intensity from the forecast models, and it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing a Category 3 strength severe tropical cyclone or stronger making landfall on Western Australia, which is some very good news indeed. But for locations between Carnarvon up to Onslow, maybe Karratha if you want to be extra safe, prepare for a tropical cyclone now. There is a Category 1, possibly a Category 2 strength tropical cyclone that's going to be coming ashore Friday evening to Saturday morning, and it's imperative that you get a head start on your preparations. Now, we'll take a look at the Access G3 model just to get a bit of a contrasting picture. They've shifted their landfall forecast location from Karratha now onto Onslow, and it's also substantially weaker as well. You can see peak wind gusts, so only approaching 150 kilometers an hour. That's a 25% decrease on 200 kilometers an hour yesterday. So it's a substantially weaker system, and it looks like it might even be weakening as it approaches landfall. So yeah, this is a drastically different forecast to what we were expecting yesterday, from what we were seeing yesterday rather. It still will rapidly intensify over the West Australian waters, but it looks like, if we were to take a look at wind shear up in the atmospheric conditions, it doesn't look like wind shear is too healthy for the system as we get into Friday. It looks like it's going to suffer from a bit of shear out of the west, so as it gets towards landfall, it will be weakening. Now, I know these wind directions and wind speeds kind of mean nothing when you're in the upper levels, up 10 kilometers into the atmosphere, but just to let you know, wind shear is very bad for tropical cyclones. It ruins the organisation that they have, and as a result, they aren't able to adequately hold intensity and remain strong. So wind shear generally very, very bad for tropical cyclones. There are a few examples where a bit of wind shear is good for tropical cyclones, but for all intensive purposes, wind shear is a very bad thing for tropical cyclones. And I do also believe that there's one or two cool pockets of waters around Exmouth, 28, 27 degrees Celsius maybe. So the storm won't actually have the best sea surface temperatures possible as it approaches landfall. The sea surface temperatures will be very warm near Rowley Shoals and down down towards Barrow Island, but they won't be as warm as it gets towards Exmouth. And I've also cited a couple of comments of the Exmouth Gulf and its relation with storm surge. Well, if we were to get a big storm surge moving through the area, you'd need a pretty powerful tropical cyclone like Category 3 or above, but I would still expect a storm tide of around 2 feet, maybe 3 feet as a worst case scenario in and around Exmouth, Coral Bay and Onslow. So you could still see quite a massive water funnel down the Exmouth Channel, which would be some pretty bad news indeed, considering it is a relatively low lying. That's enough rabble on the West Australian system. We're now going to go and take a look at the Coral Sea, because there is quite a lot happening over here in terms of rumbles of activity. It's a little bit concerning how we don't have an accurate forecast yet on what is actually going to be happening in the Coral Sea. That gives me very low uncertainty in regards to what's actually going to be happening, but we've seen one or two signals pop onto the forecast and also stay on the forecast as well. Now, what you can notice here is we've got the northwesterly winds coming down from the Gulf of Carpentaria and southeasterly winds paralleling the coast. Now, these winds here are going to be full of rainfall. If we were to switch this over to a rainfall forecast, we're looking at this shower pattern or this heavy rain pattern that's going to be coming ashore around Mackay, Hamilton Island, Airlie Beach and up towards Townsville and Cairns as well. And this will drive rainfall accumulation through the roof next weekend or this coming weekend. So Saturday, Sunday and Monday, we could be seeing rainfall totals approach 200 to 300 millimetres ashore, and I think that only goes up over the 10-day accumulation. But it definitely looks like Sunday and Monday will be the worst days for rainfall accumulation for areas between Mackay and probably Cairns, I would say, maybe even up into the Daintree as well. But definitely moving into quite a wet phase in the Coral Sea along the coastline. If we were to keep it looking at rainfall, and we've also got the pressure isobars overlaid, there's no signal of that tropical low that we were talking about. I really cannot get my scrolling and zooming in right today. But there was signals of a tropical low very close to, oh my goodness, there were signals of a tropical low very close to the Coral Sea coast around Cairns and Cardwell. It's now substantially further offshore, and it's also a lot weaker as well, and it really doesn't get itself going until it kind of breaks away from the monsoon. And it looks like we might try and see a little bit of a swirl at Thursday and Friday, quite close to the Cape York Peninsula. It's very, very difficult to make out here on this imagery, and it's a very weak system, and I am certainly cherry picking at this time. But we're looking for tropical lows more so to get a picture of the rainfall. Tropical lows can always jump out and surprise us as tropical cyclones, but it's the rainfall threat that we will be looking at, because even precursor lows can drop a huge amount of rainfall. The axis is the model that's been very bullish in terms of tropical low activity. You can see it here. You can see it better when I turn on wind gusts, which doesn't give an accurate picture of wind speeds, but you can see next Tuesday expecting something to develop, a pretty strong monsoon by the looks of things over the Coral Sea, and it looks like we get a defined low pressure system try and develop Wednesday and Thursday. Again, this is very far out in the future. This is definitely me cherry-picking data at this point. But once again, if you switch it over to rainfall accumulation, and with this tropical low being a likely scenario, you're getting accumulations on the Daintree up to 500 millimetres. So it's a concern in the sense of how much rainfall that it is going to drop. This is definitely an area around Australia that we have to be watching quite closely for rainfall patterns as well, and also for tropical lows, because they could be the precursor to fully fledged tropical cyclones. The Coral Sea, always a place that we need to be watching this time of the year, and it's going to be a place that I'm going to keep a close eye on. But right now, nothing to worry about at all. There's just going to be quite a lot of rain as we get into next weekend, or this coming weekend rather. There's also going to be quite a bit of rainfall on Saturday in southeastern Queensland and northern New South Wales. What we're going to have is what looks to be a bit of a cold front trough moving through. Behind it, some cooler conditions, thankfully, because it has been relatively hot, especially across Australia's centre. But it looks like we're going to get this cold front, and on the front end of this cold front, we'll get this trough extending down, which is going to promote thunderstorm activity for locations in southeastern Queensland and northeastern New South Wales. And you can see some of these thunderstorms look relatively strong Saturday night, especially close to the Brisbane area. There's a good chance that we see some severe thunderstorms that could drop up to 50 millimetres of rain, and also some heavy rain, hailstones and damaging winds inland around Toowoomba and so forth. Maybe Ipswich area for Brisbane. It looks like we might be seeing a little bit of thunderstorm activity there Saturday night and into Sunday morning as well. In fact, Sunday morning, it looks like we get this really strong band of thunderstorms move through Brisbane and up towards the Sunshine Coast. So I think Saturday night might definitely be a night to watch for thunderstorm activity around Brisbane. Sunday, they should ease out. In fact, Sunday, they completely ease out of the East Coast. But it looks like maybe Friday night for New South Wales, and then Saturday night and early Sunday Sunday morning. Definitely around Brisbane, Lismore, Coffs Harbour, Grafton, and up towards maybe up towards Mooloolaba and I guess Noosa on the Sunshine Coast as well. Definitely going to be a place that we have to be watching for thunderstorm activity, because it looks like we might be getting a little bit of thunderstorm activity. And I mean, you look at this black here, you're talking about 50 millimeters every 3 hours here. It's a substantial amount of rainfall, and it's nothing to really brush off as nothing, because 50 millimeters, that's definitely going to be causing some flash flooding, and in this form that it will come, which is strong thunderstorms. That's where you're talking about flash flooding as a big risk from this system. So I would not be surprised if we see these systems labelled as severe thunderstorms, and one or two of them might actually go very dangerous as well. So we'll be watching this forecast very closely, because it is something that we will be watching. And I think this moisture is also going to be promoted by a couple of tropical lows in the Coral Sea. You can see a tropical low here actually over Vanuatu. It looks like we're going to see, and this tropical low here near Vanuatu and New Caledonia, you can see it kind of connecting up to this low pressure trough here, and this is the one that's going to drop quite a lot of moisture on the tropical north coast of Queensland. But apart from that, nothing too significant around the nation in terms of significant rainfall. There's actually one or two spots now in Western Australia associated with what will be the remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Lincoln as she marches through Western Australia. It looks like we might be seeing some pretty significant rainfall totals through next weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and then also into next week and the weekend after. It looks like we might see a low pressure system move through, and I don't think that actually has any association with Lincoln. This is very interesting indeed. That's a forecast that I want to be watching, but you can see rainfall accumulations up to 150 millimeters, and near where the storm center will be, you're looking at rainfall accumulations 200 to 300 millimeters. I think that's definitely on the bullish end for this tropical cyclone. I don't think we'll be seeing rainfall that high, maybe 100 millimeters at an absolute worst case scenario, but still we could be seeing quite a bit of rainfall move through here, and that will definitely be promoting some flooding throughout parts of Western Australia. But in short, some very good news on the forecast for ex-tropical cyclone Lincoln in terms of where it'll be tracking. I'm very, very pleased with the forecast that we've had to wake up to today. Category 2 peak expected. It's still going to be a strong system. It's nothing to brush off in Exmouth and Onslow and that sort of area. Make sure you are using today, tomorrow, and I believe Friday as well. Friday you should have a full day to prepare for this tropical cyclone. There will be more updates on this system on this channel. Make sure you are subscribed for the latest information. It's been a pleasure having your company this morning. Have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.